sophisticated device, cool stuff can happen, right?
And to his discussion of method wars, that's one of the things that is a priority for all of us, is the idea that most good, effective methodologies that are around consistently for extended periods of time have merit. They are around because they work. And what we hope to do is sort of proctor an understanding of how that functions, what are the things that underlie that and drive those processes, and then it's frequently your goals and the type of situation and dog you're using that dictate which one of those, or the weaknesses or strengths or weaknesses of any one of those methodologies that's going to suit your situation. And the better you understand it, the better you can do that. So just using electronic collar work, all of those methodologies that are extant and are effective have strengths and they have weaknesses. They'll have an upside and a downside.
No solution comes free. You always buy a technical problem when you find a technical solution. It comes with one or more technical problems to be solved.
And we use our goals and the type of dog we have, the technique, the technical ability of the practitioner, all those things together to decide which way we're going to approach the problem, right? And so it's not like this one's bad, this one's good.
And the choice of solution also has to do with what problem do you want to choose?
Yes.
Like sometimes I'll choose this solution because I feel capable of dealing with the problem that comes with it, and I won't choose that solution because I do not feel technically up to dealing with the problem that comes inevitably with it.
I put it as like you need a hammer or a saw, both tools. What are you doing? What is your goal? What are you trying to accomplish with it?
Yeah, and if I know how not to hit myself, I might choose a hammer.
Right.
If I don't know how not to cut my legs sawing, I ain't gonna choose a saw for that particular task, right? It's kind of like that. That's not a bad analogy, right? Okay, so target responses, punishers are more effective when target responses aren't self-defensive behaviors. Also, punishers are more effective when target responses have less behavioral momentum or condition persistence. So food deprivation, partial reinforcement effects can both lead to behavior that is really resistant to punishment, right? So a behavior with an extensive history of partial reinforcement that is now durable under extinction, guess what? It's also durable under positive punishment. When it's strongly, strongly motivated because the animal is hungry or has a ton of food drive or whatever, durable under positive punishment. If the dog is a Mastiff who has no excitement in his life other than flinging spit when he ever sees another dog on the street, so that behavior is like super, I don't know whether it's reinforcing or what. It meets the functional definition of reinforcing because anything that I get him to do contingent upon doing that on another dog will be richly reinforced. I don't know what's actually going on with him neurobiologically, right? That behavior is going to be super stubborn under positive punishment, and also to the extent that it's hooked to self-defense and aggression, also may be refractory to positive punishment. So a lot of punishment, positive punishment is not how am I going to do it, what intensity am I going to do it. It's like which behaviors do I apply it to, and which ones are wildly inappropriate to apply it to, right? And when target responses are not habitual, I've lost my deal again, when they're not under habitual SR control. Why? Say it all together. Because they are not sensitive to their consequences, right? So things that are under SR control, remember it looks like this. Discriminative stimulus sets the occasion for a response which results in an outcome early in acquisition. These responses are highly goal-driven, very sensitive to their outcomes. After extensive practice, it comes under SR control, which is also referred to as habit or habitual control. Those things are crazy resistant to positive punishment.
Does that make sense to everybody? Because it's a giant, giant deal. Like when you're teaching new behaviors, and new behaviors are being learned, whether you're teaching them or they're being learned, right? Then the outcome strongly affects the behavior, right? So what happens? Do they get something they want? Do they not? Is it reinforced? Is it punished? What's happening? In a new acquisition of behavior, the response, the behavior, is highly modified by the outcome. That's why we're on continuous reinforcement when we're trying to construct a behavior. If they practice it enough, Pavlov kicks in, and the stimulus, the original cue for the behavior, the thing that launched that whole sequence, begins to directly affect the response, and outcomes cease to have the same influence on them anymore. Habitual behaviors are not affected by outcomes in the same way that that behavior would be during the learning process. And that is a giant thing for us. And we deal with it all the time, and sometimes people treat them as dog trainers similarly. You have a dog that's been performing this behavior. Usually it's a problem behavior for a professional trainer trying to help somebody. And it's been performing this behavior for a period of time, and it has transferred over from that learning period to habitual behavior. And now you're trying to fix it by not giving rewards or giving punishments, and it's not moving the needle. That's why. Like, it doesn't change it. So we have to have really different tacks when we approach behaviors that are habitual versus behaviors in the learning. And I mentioned in passing before, like negative punishment as a way of altering behavior works like a charm in the teaching phase. If I'm teaching a dog to jump, and it's learning to jump, and it's being successful, and it touches the jump, and I withhold reward, and they can do it again, you can really watch them change their behavior. Next time they jump, they pick their feet up like, look, I'm not touching it. Works like a charm. And then a dog's been jumping for a year, and now they touch it, and you withhold reward. Doesn't do squat, right? It's moved over to a habitual behavior. It's not stimulus response. It's now in place, not response outcome. And this happens in all kinds of areas of dog training. The place
So if you've been paying attention, you might be starting to get kind of depressed at this point. That happening to anybody, right? Because yeah, like, what's the fucking point? I went to a seminar to get taught how to train dogs, and they told me there's no point. I'm gonna buy a cat. So we went through how extinction can be easily reversed and not permanent because of why? Because essentially when you extinguish either a Pavlovian or instrumental response, you don't change that original association, you just put more learning over the top of it, and that learning you put over the top of it tends to be really sensitive to context shift. So it's like, oh, fuck, well, that doesn't work. Right? Doesn't mean you don't do it. It doesn't mean that you don't put it in the balance to work against the behavior you're trying to get rid of, but it does mean expect limited results, right? Try hard and expect frustrating limited results. And I kind of say, I did it sort of sneakily, kind of at a little disclaimer at the end, but I said the same thing kind of applies to counter conditioning, that same kind of thing. It's still worth doing, understanding, doing right, but expect limited results when you're taking your Mastiff who hates other dogs. And now you're trying to teach him to feel, oh, hot dogs, when he sees another dog. That's a tall fucking order for some of the same reasons that extinction is a tall. Now, I'm fucking telling you positive punishment has got limitations. Like, you tell me I can't just punish my way out of this? Fuck. Right? I thought I was paying you for solutions, not more problems I hadn't even thought of. But it's kind of the case. So we've identified conditions and behavior systems under which positive punishment isn't going to work to suppress a behavior either. But also somewhere in there, we kind of got a little bit of solution across too, which is what?
Alternate.
Anybody? Well, okay, do all of it for sure. Yeah. Just because we're stubborn and we're going to try it.
Yeah. Come on.
What's the answer? Alternative behaviors. Right? So essentially, accept that ideally, once an animal's learned to do something, there's a real sense in which it's kind of permanent. It's very durable, far more durable than you think, right? And so a lot of our techniques are do what you can to weaken and offset these things, take the edge off of them, but fundamentally you teach new behaviors that compete with the moods and the skeletal behaviors integral to the problem behaviors you're trying to get rid of.